we're going to talk to you about changing apartment locks and different parts that make them up also. Apartment lock. Sorry about that. Apartment locks are basically in two different types. They're tubular and mortise locks. Even the newer electronic locks fit into these two categories. Tubular locks install and remove in basically three different ways. Exposed screw, like it says here. Non-exposed clip-on, and compression. Am I working here? Yes. Okay. Mortise locks is what we're going to start with. And we're going to show you how these come apart, what to do to take them out, what to do to put them back in. Okay?
Right.
All right. Basically, here, you're going to do this?
Yep.
Okay, let me move over.
All right. So we got one mortise lock here. This one actually has exposed screws, but sometimes they do come with non-exposed screws and a faceplate that is covering it. And so all you have to do is remove that faceplate in order to gain access to the screws that are holding in the cylinder.
Pass this around and they can see these screws if you want to.
All right, so
they're underneath that plate.
Okay, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to loosen this up so that we can retrieve the cylinder. Right.
Now, why don't you turn this towards Devon, towards the camera?
Makes sense. All right, so once you loosen up the screw, you're able to back the cylinder out, theoretically.
You need to pull that key out a little bit so that it lets it turn.
Get it, okay.
Otherwise, you're going to...
Yeah, I know. Now I got to get it back in. All right, there we go. All right. And now we've retrieved the mortise cylinder. And the next step is going to be to remove the knobs.
You need to remove all that just to rekey?
Well, no, not to just rekey, but if you need to have the lock brought in, then yes, you're going to have to take all this off. Just to rekey, you just need to take this screw.
You just want to rekey, you just need to take
This is all you need.
You need to loosen this screw. Don't have to take it out quite as far as it is. And then it unscrews out. And you can pass this around if you want. This is a normal, well, there's nothing that's normal.
And when you get something rekeyed, you need to bring this in.
You bring this in to have it rekeyed, yes. Now, if you look at that particular, that one probably has a cam like this, but this is only 5 cams, and there must be 30 or 50 different cams, if not more. So it depends on the lock that it's in and whether it's going to work in your lock. If you don't have the right cam, it's not going to work in your lock.
Where the cam's inside?
The cam is on the back of that cylinder, just like here.
Oh, okay. And that determines what kind of key you would have?
No, that will determine how it works. It operates the internals on that lock.
Different mortise locks are going to have different gears inside.
Yes, when you turn the key, you're actually turning that. And it's driving parts in the lock.
So once you've removed the screws, you can just unscrew from the spindle the knobs, at least for this model. So knobs are out. Then it's just a matter of removing the plates.
You may not have to remove
when you're
the plates.
taking all that off, and you're just basically taking it apart to show how it all goes together.
How it all goes together when you're putting it back, if you have to, yes. And you will have to put it back if you're going to put it back in the door. But
Just take the drum apart. If you just want to get, I just need to get some locks rekeyed. So
okay, well then, again, that other lock. If you have a faceplate like this, it's covering this plate, which is covering these screws, which hold the cylinder and locks it in place, so no one can take it out. Okay, and if you have a lock like this, these screws are exposed as you see them. And you need to you don't have to take them all the way out, but you do need to loosen them so that you can turn this cylinder out. Once you get that out, you don't necessarily have to take the plates off. It depends on the door. And every door is different. Some are thicker. Notice the thickness, the length of this. This is 1.5 inches versus the one I passed around. I don't know if it came back or, oh, it did. Yeah. This is 1.25 inches.
Oh, getting there.
Oh, thank you.
So you guys do new keys here, right?
Yes, we do new keys here.
Rekey.
Absolutely.
So all we just need to bring in are the cylinders.
This is all you need
Create a new
for a mortar.
key.
Yes.
Okay.
Here, I don't need to take this front one off though, do I?
No, well, you didn't have to take either of them off.
Well,
You just
no, I
need to take these
this
screws.
one because of this.
Oh, yes. All right,
Yes.
I'm sorry. You're right.
But
I
I think this
apologize.
is tightly snug in there.
No, you still have to take the screws out.
Oh yeah.
Did
there
you?
we go. Nope. Need these 2 screws out.
Just the bottom and the top.
Yep.
He's learning at the same time.
So when you're changing locks, you gotta do the whole thing? You gotta do what he's doing too?
You don't necessarily, it depends on what you're doing. If you've got a problem with your mortise lock, yes, you're going to have to bring that in. If you just want to change this, you don't have to do all this.
Okay.
But this class is just in case you have to do this.
Okay.
What kind of problems would you have with the mortise lock?
What kind?
Springs.
Yeah, springs break, cams fall off, things jam, things wear out. Older locks, you may or may not be able to get parts for. You may have to replace the complete lock. If you have to replace a complete lock, some of the locks that are made 50 years ago, you're going to have to do some work on the door because they're not necessarily going to go in like a glove, like this will.
Now, do I need to remove? I don't need to remove these.
No, you don't. No, you shouldn't.
No.
No, you should just be able to take that out.
Oh, easier said than done.
Yes, what's the question?
Excuse me, whoop. Like when you go to turn the knob, it's always loose.
Okay, we'll get to that. All right, why don't you have a seat?
I can't, I gotta go.
Oh.
But I appreciate it.
Oh wow, this is in tight.
It's in there tight.
It should come out. I don't want to dwell on it, but I'm sure I'm. Oh, here it's coming. See?
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Do that one.
When we built this, we made it tight.
Nice and snug.
Because it should just pry right out real easy, pull right out. And it's not. So these are the type of things that you'll run out on. I mean, you'll run into in your home too sometimes.
And why would you need to take all that stuff out? For what kind
In
of
case you need to
In
replace
case you
a
need to
spring.
replace the lock for some reason. Boy, they really made this tight.
And with
You
older,
know whether you need to replace the spring because the knob won't turn?
the latch won't bounce back out. You might have problems with the latch.
Yeah, the latch could be broken, whatever. Okay,
There you go.
they made this really tight. But, and this screw should have just been loosened.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right.
so,
So with these kind of locks, there is a split spindle. Split spindle is functioning with this spindle having two parts that are working independently of each other. So it cannot be tight or it will not work. It has to be loosened up a little bit so that your knobs are functioning separately.
Well, the reason for that is because you want, when this is locked, you don't want anyone to come in except when you have a key. And in here, you took the screws out of this.
Yeah, I did. Here, I'll put them back in. Okay. There are two
In
gears.
here, there's two parts, okay? One is locked in place, and one isn't. That's because you need to get out, and it'll let you out. But when the door is locked, it's going to remain locked, okay? Because it's locked. And if you were to take a spindle, for instance, like this is a solid spindle, and put this in here, okay? I wish you wouldn't have.
No, I know.
If you turn this,
There we go.
that's fine, so long as the door's unlocked. But the minute you lock this, you've locked both sides at the same time, because what happens with the split spindle is the inside lets you out and the outside keeps you out. Okay? And in the interest of time, I don't know if you really want us to go back and put this back in, but you saw how we took it out, and you would just reverse that procedure to put it back in. We're going to move on and show you how to take out some tubular type locks. Why don't you start with that?
Okay. I did want to mention also that frequently what you'll find in a lot of bathrooms or bedrooms is a bed and bath mortise lock. A bed and bath mortise lock. Sometimes with a thumb turn, sometimes with a skeleton key, which is essentially the same type of principle as removing this type of mortise lock, where you want to remove the handles first, unscrew the screws, and remove it. All right. All right, for these guys, we have exposed screws. How did you call this one? Non-exposed screws and compression. Now, exposed screws is pretty easy because they're exposed.
Obviously. Then you can see them. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention about mortise locks is they come in 2.5 inch back set and 2 3/4 inch back set. So your actual mortise hole will move. I mean, it won't move, but it could be in 2 different places on your lock, because we don't know which lock you're bringing in. But it's always good to know how thick the door is, so you know what you're putting in. It's good to know the back set.
All right, once you've removed the screws, you can remove the back part, you can remove the front part, and then screws in the front to remove the latch.
There are different spindles for mortise locks. I know I'm jumping up and back, I don't mean to, but this again is a split spindle. These are adjustable, where sometimes the parts inside have to be that size as opposed to this size, and you can either take one off or leave both on, or take both off. Gives you that versatility. Are you putting that one back on? Or
I'm
take
just
it off?
putting it on enough.
There again, the distance from the edge of the door to the center of the hole, or where you stick your key in, okay, is either usually 2 3/8 or 2 3/4. And you can see that when you look at these. This one's 2 3/8, and this one's 2 3/4. Okay, I'm going to pass these around. Every manufacturer is different, and you can In some cases, use other manufacturers, but in most cases, you need to stick to the manufacturer that you're working with because they won't all intermix.
Okay, for the second lock, what we're dealing with is a detent here. It's a little button that needs to be pushed in. A lot of times locks will include a tool such as this. All you need is a fine point or like a paper clip or something of that sort. Push it in. The knob is removed. All right. And this should just pop off, right?
Again, why would you want to take these things apart?
If you're just replacing them. In these cases, just replacing them. If you were going to rekey something, I mean, this particular one is just a pass.
If you're going to put in a new one, you need to know how to take it out to put in a new one. And then you reverse the process, basically, to put in a new one.
Once you remove this cap, you have the exposed screws.
If you're going to have it rekeyed, you still need to take it out to bring it in to have it rekeyed. So you need to go through this type of removal.
For this last one, we have the key on this side. This is an entry. This is going to be, you always want to remove the knob from the inside first. Again, there's going to be a detent.
Show them what the detent looks like if you
Yeah,
can.
for this one, it's a little hole. And there's just a little button in there that you're going to push in that's going to release it. Once you do that, this is the compression. So this actually spins out, spins off.
And sometimes they're tighter and they come with a tool, which we had on the table a little while ago.
This one.
Yes. And there's, on this particular lock, not all locks, but on this particular lock, there's this little hole here that this rests on, and you tighten it. Okay, and you use this end on your detent to take your knob off.
You sell those tools here?
Yes, we sell these.
And
Okay,
there
another-
again, once
What's it
you
called?
A removal tool.
A lock removal tool.
Yes. You might have a 5-inch back set. These are 5-inch back sets. And if you look at them, you'll understand why they're not interchangeable. And there's other 5-inch back sets also that go together differently.
For instance, this one right here is an extension for
Where did it
cow oil.
Yeah.
Oh, right there.
No, here's the. Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right, so the Cal Royal extension. Well, this isn't the Cal Royal one, is it?
No, that's the
it's not.
Schlage.
This is the Schlage one.
So here, use
Cal
the
Royal one's actually a little longer,
arrow.
longer too, but just inserts basically the same way. Just latches in, and then this latches in regularly. Latch
Yes.
removal probably should be important. So I don't know which
Well,
one.
you
we
want
do.
to take it. You want to take it out and show them how
Yeah.
they connect, and then we'll move to a different line.
When you're installing these, you want the latch to go in first.
Thank you.
Different locks also have different kinds of thumb turns as far as entries and privacies. Some you push in, and as soon as you touch that knob, they pop right back out. Some of them, you turn them, and they're going to just constantly stay locked on the other side. Some you push in, you can push it in, as soon as you touch the knob, it'll pop out, or you can push it in and turn it, and it'll stay locked.
Speaking of that, this is one where when it's turned and locked, it locks from the inside and it locks from the outside. In order to get out, you physically have to unlock it to get out, and you've left it unlocked unless you come back with a key and lock it. These are not that way. Just like he was saying, you can actually exit. And see if you can see that latch going in there, unless he's taking it out already.
Not yet.
Okay, you can see that latch going in, and you can exit, even though this is still locked. Even though it popped because I didn't have it turned. But now, if you watch that, and I turn it, see it didn't pop? I don't know if you can see it from there, but you can get out. From the outside,
It is still locked.
it's still locked.
All right, so once you have it in this, once you have removed this inside piece, take it right out, then it's about removing the latch. And vice versa, you put the latch in first. I don't know
Before you do that,
how easily I'm gonna be able to put that.
this latch has prongs in it. Most of them do, except, well, obviously these don't, but these go on a little bit differently. I don't know if you can catch this, but these prongs need to catch here, like this, in order to actually operate the lock and stay where it belongs. Because if you just put it in like that, it ain't gonna work correctly, and it's dragging in your latch. Okay? So then, when you put this back, which you're gonna do right now, right?
I'm gonna do that right now. Alright, so there we go.
I don't know if you can see that, but
Of course, we're in lock position here. So first you want to just grab that latch. And I mean, different models are going to have different ways of, different types of latches. This one has a 2 3/8, 2 3/4. It's a little easier to go to install because it just goes straight through versus trying to grab.
yeah, it's easier. It's also a different grade. There are different
Yes.
grades of locks. And some are built better than others, and the better built ones have latches like this instead of a full latch like the latch I showed you. That doesn't mean that your security's that much less. It just means they're built better. They're built to last longer and be used more. And some are adjustable. While I have this one out. There's this little pin on this particular brand. And if you, I don't know if you can see that, but see how that moves up and back? That's 2 3/8. And that's 2 3/4. Okay? So you would use this in that particular type of lock as opposed to one of these or one of these that I passed around that's obviously 2 3/8 or 2 3/4. Now you can't see the 2 3/8 here because they measure from the out of the door to the center of the lock when they're measuring. We'll start on the deadbolts.
Yep.
There are surface mounted deadbolts, which is what he's speaking about, and there are through the door deadbolts. Okay? And they come as double cylinders and single cylinders. By that I mean there's key on the inside, on the outside, I'm sorry, on a single cylinder, and a thumb turn on the inside. Now a double cylinder has a key on the outside and a key on the inside. And you have to be very careful where you put these, because if you put them in a spot and there's a fire and no one has a key, you're locked in. We're going to go over this a little bit more in a few minutes. You're going to take this one apart. I'll put this one back together if you want. You can show him how to take that apart and show him how to answer that question.
I don't know if I got the thread on that right.
Don't worry about it. You start taking that apart and explain it to them.
Jimmy proofs.
Again, these are all one-sided, where the key is on the outside and the thumb turns are on the inside. They do make them. I thought I had one out here. Yes, I do. Where the inside also has a, oh, I'm sorry. You need a key, yes. Well, certain people use them. And that's why I said in certain instances they're still legal. In other places you don't want to put them in because of fire regulations.
A lot of times the double deadbolts will be used on gates so that you can't just reach your hand around and open it up.
And that's one of the problems. If you break a window, and you reach in and unlock it, you're in the house. But at the same time, if you're in the house and you're in the kitchen, excuse me. If you're in the house and you're in the kitchen and a fire starts because you're cooking something and you can't get through the hallway to get to the front door and the back door is locked, you got problems. Lots of them.
Burned to death.
Yeah.
Well, if you're in a spot where you can break a window with something and get out the window, it's still a problem. But yeah, you could actually die in that situation. That's why they don't want double cylinders on back doors.
And some of these, I think more particularly with the Jimmy proofs, evidently they used to include one-way screws, making it very difficult.
Oh, yes. We'll get to that too, shortly. We'll get you to a point where you get that out first. And then
Yep. All
we'll go
right.
over it.
So once we remove this, then you have access to this plate. Sometimes it's not a plate. Sometimes one of these other ones did not have a plate.
Here,
All right. Sometimes
you can pass that around.
what it
if
will
you want.
have is just a little piece like this, which has a little curvature to it. This metal piece has a little inside part that will fit directly into the hole that's going to be in the door, so it helps lock it into place.
In some of the better locks, you'll get this big plate. And some of the less expensive, you'll still get the big plate. And others, you'll get this small plate. And all it does is hold the outside cylinder in place so that the tail in this can operate your lock. And speaking of that, so we don't forget later, these kind of locks use rim cylinders, and rim cylinders have fixed tails. They're either vertical or horizontal. You cannot move them unless you use the key. It goes into the lock and works the guts of the lock, specially built so that it will work that way. As opposed to A deadbolt. Yes, you have a question.
Yeah, I have one of the locks like this ones, and I put my key and I try to twist it. When the key lock, like the circle when the key goes, it was twisted with the key. It was going like it didn't work. So when I finally, I was able to take out the key, a little piece of metal, the little dots is coming out too. In the front.
Okay, you need to take your lock out because the back of your cylinder
Yeah.
has either a clip or a cap, and something came loose or fell off or broke, and the parts fell off and jammed, and you need to either get a new cylinder or rebuild it if we can.
So I came to the store to buy the whole piece that you carry.
Right.
So I can change my key and everything. I want everything changed.
Okay, we can do that. We'll go over it with you at the end if you'd like. The other thing I was saying before was this is from a deadbolt like this. Okay, and it operates differently inside again. And these tails, without the key, actually can turn. They have to because that's the way they drive the parts in the lock that they're going into. And when you stick your key in, it'll drive it also. That's what he was bringing up before. So go ahead with your part.
Well, I was just going to mention that. So here we have the rim cylinder, and this particular one has a vertical rather than horizontal tail. Now, Siegel brand Jimmy Proofs are always going to have the vertical tail. A lot of the other brands have horizontal. And these days, oh yeah, I forgot this has this little clip in it. A little clip here to have to push in. This guy.
There was a little screwdriver there.
Push this thing in order to expose it. Right here, this is going up and down.
It's a security measure.
Sometimes in the newer models, it will be a crosshair. So you can use both vertical or horizontal.
And other times it'll either be vertical or horizontal only. And the reason what he was showing you there is if someone is going to attack your door and rip your cylinder out, once the tail of that cylinder comes out of that lock, that little gate will close, and then they can't get the gate open to operate the lock. It's a security measure built into these locks.
So if that external part's getting loose, is that just screws on the inside?
That's all it is the screws in the inside are just getting loose. More than likely. Unless you have something wrong with the lock. Yes.
Now,
The cylinder.
I tried doing that, but like on the other side, it kept turning. That little, where his left hand is, that little round part would keep turning.
Cylinder.
This one,
Cylinder.
right in there. It's like it would keep, I don't know if it's this or this one, but it wouldn't, it's like it wouldn't line up or, I don't know.
It shouldn't turn.
No?
No. I mean, it could while you're tightening it. The
Right.
whole thing can turn, but you've got to hold it. You physically have to hold it in place so that the screws line up.
Right.
And
Okay.
once you get the screws in, it shouldn't really turn because they're following,
So it's a matter of making sure it's lined up right.
just making sure it's lined up right first, yes. Otherwise, something's wrong with your cylinder.
I'm trying to rekey a building and to reduce the number of keys I have and make common keys for multiple locks. Do you know, are these keys all interchangeable? Or
No, they are not interchangeable.
Okay, so
You need
but-
to stick with one type of keyway.
So if a key like this can only be matched to another key like that?
That type of key, yes.
and a round one could be matched to something like that, or
Not necessarily. Just because the head is round doesn't mean that the blade on the key is exactly the same.
is there any way to tell what keys might be made interchangeable?
Yes, and I'll be glad to look at them and tell you when we're done. Okay?
All right. Once again, there's a little clip that pushes that in. Line this up.
Okay, now what he was saying before, if I can find them. They were on the table. Oh, yes. Some of these locks actually get installed with what they call a one-way screw. And going in, they're really simple to put in. You use a flat tip screwdriver and it will turn, well, you get it in the right place, it'll turn just like my fingers are to go in. I'm not doing a good job here, but because I'm like this. But coming out, it's going to slip right off because that's a one-way screw. Yes, I'm going to send one around. Okay? Now, there are tools out there, and nothing really works real well. Okay? We don't have any of these here, but I thought I'd pass that around. Those are one-way screwdrivers. These you can use in a one-way screwdriver. They're used in a drill, but you need to use it in a variable speed drill, because if you put it into a regular drill, it'll go way too fast for what you're doing. Okay? And these rest over your screw and will hopefully, yes, if they're not too tight, take them out. There is one other alternative for the Devon. Oh, yeah. There's one other alternative to get these things out, which is a pain in the lower portion of the extremity, but it does work. It's called a cold chisel and a hammer. And what you need to do is catch the edge of the screw with the cold chisel. And I don't have 3 hands. But once you get to catch the edge of the screw and keep tapping it around, you will definitely loosen it. And once it's loose enough, you can grip it with the pliers and then unscrew it. It will take you a while to do, but it will work.
Do you have the tool to do a manual?
I have the ones I passed around that you can put in a drill or in a manual screwdriver. But I do not have the manual screwdrivers. Those things work, but they don't work that great, believe me. I've used them. They slip a lot. It takes you longer that way than it does with a chisel. Those work a little better. But they're put in there with the reason that you don't want someone taking your lock out unless you absolutely have to. You don't want a burglar to be able to reach in and take a screwdriver and unlock the lock. Okay, so what did we do here? Are we finished with this?
It's all back together. Yep.
It's all back together. All right. This is called a surface-mounted deadbolt, a jimmy-proof. These are surface-mounted deadbolts. Okay? They sit on the surface of the door. This gets mortised into the jamb. When the door is open, the door will open. When the door is closed, these slide into there and the door is locked. They also make, I don't have this one open, but a latch. It's basically the same thing. Looks almost the same way here, but it has a latch mechanism on it. And when you turn this, the latch will, but when you close this, if you close this and it's open, you're not going to close the door. With the latch will hit this right over this and lock, and you will be locked out unless you have a key. With that, you can leave that latch in an open position so that you can leave it open and go back and forth. And then when you trip this again, it's going to lock itself. Okay? And these all use, again, fixed tail cylinders. Okay. We want to go over deadbolts next.
Deadbolts.
Deadbolts. They come in, like I said before, single cylinder, where you have a thumb piece and you can throw your bolt. And these two particular locks are locks that you can't change the cylinders. You can rekey them to the same type of key, okay? But you can't put a different cylinder into these locks, okay? If you want to change the type of key. That's part of what we're trying to tell you here. Okay, and he's going to show you how to take these out real quick, hopefully.
Yep.
And then we're going to go over double cylinders, which this is the outside, and you have to use a key like I said before. Okay? And there's more to this, but I want you to watch him take that out first.
All right, I'm going to take out this double, just removing these screws. Double deadbolts do tend to be a lot harder to install than single-sided deadbolts.
Harder to install, not harder to
Not harder to take
take
apart.
out.
But they are trickier to install because you have very little room to work with to see how you're lining up those screws to actually make it to the other side.
With double deadbolts, they come with shorter tails than the single type, because the single type goes back into the turn piece. Where did they go? You have the singles, don't you? Yeah, you have the singles.
Yeah, I got
Okay.
this one
They
here.
go back into this turn piece. The doubles have to go through your bolt that goes in the center here, which he's going to show you in a minute.
Yes, let me retrieve
And
that.
they overlap, or they crisscross, or something, and you have to get them where they're going to be through the bolt so they operate the bolt correctly. And sometimes you need 3 hands. You don't, but it feels like it.
Also, when installing deadbolts, maybe not so much with double deadbolts, but more so with single deadbolts,
Depends on what you're about to say.
it's easier to install with the bolt actually thrown. Correct? To have the bolt thrown.
Yes. You're right. When you're installing them, the bolts should usually be out because it makes it easier for your timing to be correct.
Otherwise, you might not be able to retrieve your key. You'll install it and you can't get your key out.
And then you have to take it apart again and reinstall it.
All right. That's what we got for the.
And those also come in adjustable sometimes. That one happens to be adjustable, I believe.
This one is adjustable.
And some are fixed where they're only 2 3/8 or 2 3/4. And those are also available in longer extensions, like a 5-inch on certain brands.
And this is also a gate latch, which is not adjustable. This is frequently used with double deadbolts where it's a gate frequently used and you want it to close and latch behind itself.
He wants to take a picture of it, so
Yeah.
you're covering most of it.
Yep. Where you want it to always close because a lot of people are using the gate at the same time.
Okay, moving to the double cylinder deadbolt. These are double cylinder deadbolts, and you use a key on the outside to throw the bolt and retract the bolt, and you use a key on the inside. Now, how do you get these off? There's a number of different ones that are made. This one happens to have two little holes here, but you can't get a screwdriver in there, right? Until you do this.
Oh.
You have to have the key. And once you've got the key, you can put a screwdriver, this isn't the screwdriver, but you can get a screwdriver in here and get to these bolts. And then this will come off, just like it came off there, okay? And you can refeed it when you're putting it back. I mean, I can take this off if you want. I will in a minute. But I want to show you something else first, okay? That's this one. There are some you're looking at and you can't find anything there, right? But if you're careful, and this one's on very easily. Some of them are very, very tight. You really can damage this. Now you've got your screws. Okay? Once you take those screws out, you'll be able to take the bolt out and put the thing back again. And again, you've got to worry about getting those tails overlapped or, okay, which I'm going to do in a minute. Yeah, I think we have time. Okay. But some of these also, years ago, they put Allen set screws in instead of Phillips head screws in. And in order to get them out, you need Allen wrenches, the correct size to fit in there, fit in and loosen them up and turn them out. Now also, just because they put these in, they did two things to those. For more security, they put little pieces of brass in that would jam themselves in there. These do not have them. Okay, the one you're looking at does not have them. But they put little pieces of brass in there to jam in there that you need to physically pry out, okay, before you can either get to the Phillips screw or the Allen head screw. And those are a pain to get out. And hopefully you won't damage the lock doing it. But they are there in some locks. Okay? If you were to take this apart, this one happens to be a Phillips screw. Now that we have access, and sometimes it's easier in a mount than it is in a door. I'll admit that. See how short that tail is? My finger in the way? Wait a minute. Oh, you got it, okay. Both those tails have to overlap. I don't know if you can see that. Both those tails have to overlap inside this little hole here. I'm going to take, no, I'm not going to take this one out because this is a different kind. Go grab two tails real quick.
Two tails?
Yeah, 2 deadbolt tails if you can. All right, I'm going to take this one out first.
Deadbolt.
These 2 particular locks, as I was saying before, and we'll get further in a second. You can change the cylinders on. You can change the cylinders on. You cannot change the cylinders on those. Okay, but you have to make sure when you change them, you get the right tails for them too. And do you have 2 of them?
Yeah.
Okay. These things fit, in this case, like this, over each other. And they go through, well, let's take this out first, so we can pass it around and you can see exactly how it goes. Did we forget anything else? I don't remember. Oh, you were going to show them those other mortise locks, but...
No, we mentioned them.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
And again, some of these are adjustable and some of them aren't. This one happens to be adjustable. Now it's 2 3/4. Now it's 2 3/8. And these tails in order to operate, these are not exactly the same tails that go into this, but you'll get the point. Have to be able to sit in there properly so that they can be driven to drive that boat.
And even though the gate latches do not necessarily come as adjustable this way, they are adjustable in this fashion, depending on whether you need it to close this way or to close this way.
And we'll take the rest of this one out. And this one, in order to get this tail and this cylinder out, you need to take the screw out and it'll slide out and you can put a different cylinder in. And the other types, you can't do that, like I said.